Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Make It Happen with Wahido Marata. This is your favorite podcast, hopefully for now. And today we have an amazing person called Angela Sedran. And Angela works with entrepreneurs who are committed to really shifting the needle on their profits in a way that allows them to spend less time in and more time on the business, focusing on the things that really matter. Her trusted, proven system has worked for some of the world's biggest companies. Clients create a laser-like focus on doing the things in your business that will make the biggest difference, accelerate and manage your business growth, improve in profits, generate more cash flow, free your time working on day-to-day grunt work to focus on growing the business instead, improve work-life balance. I'm sorry I stumbled upon some of the words there, but thank you very much for coming to the show, and I really appreciate your time. And I would like to just invite you to please let us know where you are, first of all, where you come from, and a little bit of your background.
Sure. Well, thank you for that intro. I am currently sitting in a village in England visiting my high school maths teacher. So she was really instrumental in my upbringing, and she's leaving the UK in 2 months to move back to Africa. So I made the point of actually coming out to visit her. So that's where I'm sitting, and I'm off to Berlin tomorrow, as I mentioned earlier. So my story, well, I'm from everywhere and I'm from nowhere, basically. I was born in Africa. My parents were immigrants. So I have a German mother and an Italian father. I moved to Australia 21 years ago. And I moved because I grew up in apartheid Africa, or South Africa, which had many, many challenges. Mm-hmm. And the crime actually started becoming very bad. And I had a son very young. I had a son at 20. And I lost his father pretty much 6 months after we had him. So wow.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
Well, thank you. It was a very long time ago for me now, but it's certainly been an event that has shaped my life, and it's one of the reasons I do what I do now. So I found myself at 20, halfway through an accounting degree with a 6-month-old son, and crime, as I said, was getting worse. So I left and I moved to Australia with my parents. I'm a very small family. I'm an only child. So the 4 of us, including my little old grandmother, moved, and I've spent nearly 20 years there. In the interim, I have lived in the UK. But what I found as a mother and as a woman was that it is very difficult to earn an income and give your child the best that they can. And my son also went deaf when he was 3, which we didn't realize it was progressive. And at the age of 6, they said to me he wasn't going to learn to read. So what happened was we operated on him, and he managed to obviously learn to read. He's actually now has 2 more years of engineering.
Yes. I saw that in your bio. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Mother.
Yeah. So it's really made me quite passionate about helping women, and it's taken me 20 years to get to this point. I put myself through a master's degree 15 years ago. So the reason I work with entrepreneurs is that creative side of things. But for me, it's very important to help people actually build a business and help them achieve their vision and help them achieve the life that they want. I really found corporate didn't suit me at all. I've worked in it for 20 years, so I do know it well. But aside from the fact that you will never earn financial freedom working for someone else, I also found that it didn't stimulate me enough. It wasn't my purpose. It didn't make me happy. It killed my mojo, effectively. So I actually have a few of my own little businesses in e-commerce, but I also am a coach now and a business coach. And what I do is I help people systemize their business, create some structure around it, but also help them build the skills that they need to be a serious business owner that can be taken seriously, particularly women. So obviously I work with male business owners too, but predominantly female. And that comes from my life experiences. As I said, it took me 20 years to get where I am now. But if I can help someone else do that in a year or 6 months, well, then I've made a difference.
Definitely. I certainly relate to that because coaching is my passion, and there's nothing more gratifying than having people grow from using your tools and following your experience. I mean, it's definitely amazing. And you mentioned before about your mother being German. You know, my mother is German. My mother comes from Berlin. What a coincidence.
Your mother's from Berlin. Mine is from Gelsenkirchen, which is from the coal mining area in the west. But Berlin's a great city.
Yeah, it is.
Did you spend much time in Germany?
I spent 7 years in Germany because I was actually born in Portugal because of my father being Portuguese. But later on, I got married and I had my children, and that happened everything in a small village called Bad Grund in Niedersachsen, in the region of Niedersachsen, so next to Hanover. And so, I spent there 7 years. So, my German is not perfect, but it's
good enough.
It's good enough. Yes. And so could you please explain that turning point where you actually decided to not only become a coach, but to give your life towards helping people with their business and in a personal way?
Well, there were two events in my life. So I actually got retrenched during the GFC in 2007. And look, honestly, I did not have many savings. I had put my son in a private school specifically so that he would have a better education and a little bit more advanced teaching in terms of his ability to spell and actually write. So I found myself in a pretty dire situation, and I literally moved heaven and earth for a year. I think I worked 3 jobs to pay the bills because I was determined that he was not going to lose out or move home or leave school. So that was when I started my first little e-commerce business, and that was 11 years ago now. At that point, I wasn't able, though, to actually break away and work for myself yet. It was just an extra income. And then I went from being a strategy director for an American company to actually consulting. And with that consulting came a lot of coaching, a lot of facilitating, a lot of leadership development, and I really enjoyed that. I love people. I love working with people. So I knew that was more or less where I wanted to be, but not in corporate. Corporate does not make my soul sing. To be frank, I found it very difficult to get out of bed in the morning and be excited about making a multinational company another $1 million. Mm-hmm. So I knew that wasn't quite right for me. And I was lucky enough. Actually, I had an event happen in my life. I got divorced in 2015. And at the end of 2015, I thought I had paid off all my debts. Everything was terrific. And I got scammed out of $100,000, which was absolutely devastating for me. I didn't know how I was going to get out of it. And because it was from an international a place overseas, I had to deal with the FBI, I dealt with Interpol, I dealt with Scam Watch in the UK. Everybody said to me, impossible, you will never get your money back, it's too hard. But I had nothing to lose at this point, and I kept going. So 8 months after it happened, I actually found the guy who scammed me. He was based in Israel, believe it or not. And I never left Australia, but you know what? I got every cent back with interest.
Wonderful.
And for me, and then I managed to negotiate a retrenchment. And at that point, I said, I'm never going to be dependent on anyone else for an income again. It's time for me to start this. So 2 years ago, I started my coaching business, and I've never looked back. I absolutely love it. And as you said, I don't know, maybe it's an ego thing, but boy, there's a real kick in watching people grow and knowing that you've helped them grow. I really love that. So it makes me happy. It gives me joy, and I bounce out of bed in the mornings. Life is good.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I understand what you mean about the ego part of things. But, for me, when I see someone with a belief system or a block in their lives, which for me is so easy to explain and to make sure that they actually, by following some steps, can actually come out of it. For me, it's actually being of service. Of course, there is the monetary financial exchange, but in practical terms, it's like I'm really helping people. Don't you agree?
I do agree. And I have a mentor who explained something to me recently. And it's a very simple concept, but it really made me go, wow. And he said to me, look, I know you hate the concept of selling, but if you have a gift and you have a purpose, if you don't help someone and share that with them, you actually aren't doing them any favors. In fact, you're doing them a disservice. So that really made me sit back and think. And yeah, I do agree with you, because I think we all have a purpose in this world, whatever that may be, and we all have different gifts and skills. So to share that is lovely.
Definitely.
And it brings you purpose. So it's that Japanese concept of ikigai, when what you're doing matches with what you love and what you can earn an income from. That's your life's purpose. And that's actually why the Japanese live much longer, because they really focus on that.
Definitely. I usually say that, there is no purpose in life if, and of course this is subjective of many different circumstances, but if you don't fulfill what you love to do. And, starting with the why, you want to do what you want to do, and really focusing on what that energy that leads you up comes from, and what it means for you. If that becomes the focus, then life is much, much better. And
it is much better, yeah. But I see so many people, particularly if you go into the city in the morning. So I was in London last week, and it reminded me of my days working in London. So running to the train in the morning, getting on the train with millions of other people, and then doing the same in the opposite direction at night. And so many people, unfortunately, are stuck in that hamster wheel. And then they think, well, I'll wait till I'm 65, retire, and then life will get good. And that to me is such a sad thing, because, gosh, if you can live a life every day that you love, that makes you happy, that's what life should be. So for me, I also look at the way I do things as helping people do that. It's obviously not for everybody. There are people who love working that way, and that's great. But there are people who want something more in life. And for me, what I do is actually helping them do that. I mean, the bio that you read to me, now that I've heard it, sounds quite businessy. And when you get to know me, you can see that, yes, I've got the business and I've got the business skills, but actually I'm quite bubbly and quite outgoing. And that was something that, particularly in corporate, my bosses kind of looked at me and went, oh, you need to be a little bit, not quite like that, be a bit more subdued. And I'm not like that. So if I can help other people who want to enjoy their lives, express themselves, and earn a living out of what they're doing, well, then I've made a difference.
Definitely. And I apologize, I only read the first 2 paragraphs of your bio, but actually I have another one. I have another part, which for me, it's much more to do with you. And this is what I would like our listeners to know and find out about, which is about your passions. And there are several things that you say that really struck me, because you said that you are passionate about a multitude of seemingly unconnected things like entrepreneurship, creativity, spirituality, animal welfare, psychology, like lifelong learning, human potential, interior design, and philanthropy, just to name a few. Would you like to just let us know a little bit about perhaps the one that's kind of makes you more alive out of all of those?
It comes down to making our planet a more beautiful place and being kinder to the world we live in. So I am a big animal lover. Anybody who knows me knows that. And for me, to be gentle to the things we share this world with is very important. But I'm also, I wouldn't say a feminist. I love being a woman and I love girly things, but I am quite passionate about helping women achieve more with their life. So, and particularly maybe growing up in Africa and seeing how the local women struggled, that was an issue for me. So I'm joining a group called the Global Difference Makers, and we haven't actually ironed out exactly how this is going to work, but I'm probably going to set up a scholarship fund for girls next year to actually get girls in third world countries to be able to go to school and get an education. And also helping women like their mothers achieve more, because at the end of the day, whilst I'm very supportive of children's charities, I believe if you can educate the women and empower the women and make sure they have an income, then the children and the families will be taken care of, because women are the heart of the family, essentially. So I'm very, very passionate about that specifically, that and animals. Those are my two big things. The psychology side of things is interesting to me because it's about human behavior, and that's something I find quite fascinating as well. But that sort of integrates into everything that I do anyway.
Wow, we share much more than the eyes meet. Actually, I'm a true animal lover. I actually have been a vegetarian for 20 years now, and it was one of the most amazing choices that I underwent. In my life, because of many other things, especially also the spiritual side of it, and human behavior. It's definitely my passion. From neuroscience to how the body functions and how everything in the body, when in alignment, serves us much better.
That's true. Yeah, actually, I haven't eaten meat since I was 18 either. So, I guess this is maybe exposing a little bit too much of myself, but
not at all.
No, but what I'm going to tell you. So, because I'm on a farm, they've got cows and bulls. So every day I go and sit in the field with these two young bulls.
I saw a video. That was so amazing.
I was so devastated because I found out yesterday that he might be being bred for meat. So I'm going to have to go and talk to the farmer tomorrow and make him swear to me that he will only use him as a stud, because honestly, I was really devastated when I found out yesterday. So if I have a dream, I want a bigger home with a bit of land, and I probably will end up rescuing some animals. That would make me very happy.
Yes, I mentioned that another day in a video that I made, that people are not really in tune with animals' feelings, and the fact that they have families, and the fact that they are just like us, human, not human, but animals, living beings that share the earth with us. And it's just a pity for me that there is so much going on in the industry, and finances move so much people still nowadays.
Yeah, it saddens me. People don't support animal charities as much. I did a race, a sponsored race 2 years ago in Sydney. Couldn't do it last year because I wasn't there, but I ran for the RSPCA, or the Society for the Protection of Animals.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I only made about $1,000, but a friend of mine who ran for a children's fund earned about $10,000 for the same thing. So it can be a little bit difficult to try and raise money for the animals, but I'll keep plugging away. I've just ended up fostering a cat, and I'm not very good at fostering, so she's now a permanent resident in my home. But if I could help more, I would, and I try as much as I can. So, in fact, I wanted to meet a hedgehog in the UK, but still haven't been able to meet one. My school teacher found a lady with hedgehogs, and then the badgers ate them, so I have to keep trying.
They're such adorable, cute creatures. I really love them. Yes. And so now you are in the UK. Do you travel a lot for business purposes to meet clients, or more for leisure?
Look, most of my business these days is online. So I deliver globally online, and I have customers for both my retail business all over the world, and for my coaching business, I have customers all over the world. So, look, it doesn't take much of an excuse for me to travel. I love being on a plane. I love adventures. I love going to new places. But I am trying to spend at least 4 to 5 months in Europe every year now, progressively more so, because I am planning to settle in Europe. I'm probably going to move to Italy. I'd love a little place in the country there.
Mm-hmm.
But on Friday or tomorrow, I'm actually talking to someone in Singapore about potentially a joint collaboration as well. So we might be launching in Singapore and in Asia. Basically, I work all over. Mm-hmm. And I've specifically built my business to be able to do that, because I don't want to be fixed in one place. For me, for me, and I love the cultures, because I've grown up in such a multicultural background. I love working with different cultures. I find people really fascinating. And in some ways it saddens me that because of this political correctness, we're actually losing a lot of the things that make different cultures unique. But that's, I guess, another thing that I enjoy, and it goes back to my psychology side of things, and I just find people fascinating.
Mm-hmm. And another thing that we share, basically, this kind of online business, and being able to reach everywhere and everyone in many parts of the world because of this possibility. For me, the internet was one of the things that really changed the course of humanity, but tremendously. And this is one of the benefits that we can reap from that. But could you let us know a little bit about the programs that you offer? I saw that you have programs that you offer.
Yes, I do.
They are also online. Is that correct?
Yes, online. I do some one-to-one coaching, but a little bit less so. So I have a 6-week program, which is basically just touching on how you actually go about developing a strategy, but then how you actually implement it. So I use a very simple model called the ADE model, which is about assessing your environment. So that gives you clarity, designing your priorities, and I tend to work in 90-day cycles. And designing your priorities will give you focus, and then I teach people how to actually execute. So the 6-week program is a little bit of an introduction to that. I also give them the templates for the 90-day scorecard. And then what often happens is I then get customers or clients who transition to the year-long program. And the year-long program actually is 4 cycles of 90 days. So by the time they're finished, it will very much be a habit within their business and a skill within that they will have and that their staff will have if they have staff. But I also work on a leadership element in terms of that. So leadership for me, the way I define it, is the ability to influence. And leadership, actually, if you're a parent, you're a leader. Anybody, if you have to deal with another human being, you need leadership skills. But for me, it's about learning how to inspire and create vision. So it's thinking strategically. If you're a parent, how do you motivate your kids, type of thing. If you have staff, or even yourself, how do you develop that future vision? It's also about delivering excellence. Delivering excellence comes to having integrity, problem solving, consistency. The third element that I often work on is developing yourself and others. And that's not just mindset, that also involves developing some functional skills. So most business owners have a business that they started because they love what they do, or they have a gift or a purpose that they want to share, but they're not necessarily clued up on business, and they don't always have the technical skills to run the business. So often what I find is when my clients come to me, they're pretty overwhelmed. And they don't know what to do next because there's so many things going on. And it's really just about creating that vision, working out where you're at, and then building the bridge and the steps between the two. So that's what I mean by developing self. And then the final element is managing change. It's a skill that I find that is not very well developed in most people. Unfortunately, they don't teach it at school, although I think they should.
Exactly.
Yeah, and a little bit of resilience in there as well. So the year-long program works a little bit more on those elements, and obviously it's community-based as well.
Mm-hmm. So people actually have sessions with you one-on-one, and that happens every second week, or is could you please let us know the structure of such a program?
Program is purely group training. Sure. So the 6-week program is group based. We do 1.5-hour webinars every week with homework. The year-long program is slightly different. It still involves that, but it also involves a call with me, a half-an-hour call every 2 weeks as well. So they'll get much more personalized, much more tailored consulting, I suppose, and coaching that way too. And there's also monthly themes as well. So in 1 month we might focus on learning or building change management skills. So we have themes for every month as well, and then obviously I take them through the 90-day cycle so that they learn that model of assess, design, and execute, and start really building it into their business. So it's a mixture essentially of being part of the community, getting one-to-one coaching, getting group training as well, because I find in that environment people actually end up teaching each other, which is quite effective as well. And then also they get certain worksheets and elements mailed to them too. But I am available to them if they need me. And that, I guess, is a little bit unusual because most of the business coaching programs I've seen, you don't have that one-to-one element.
Definitely. Well, it sounds like a very nice program. Thank you for developing it and for offering everyone. And I would just like to go a little bit back. You said that you are, starting or envisioning this work with more the Asian countries. Is there anything else that is going on in your life or future new projects that you are excited about?
Well, I've accidentally become, I don't know if it's an expert, but I've become very good at building online stores. And I have, I think, 4 at the moment. We turn over about $1 million a year, which is, I didn't even know how I managed it, but I have. So I've been asked to actually work on a project in the UK, developing a business that sells classic cars. They actually source classic cars from all over the world, and they build that. So I'm investing in that and helping grow that. It has nothing to do with my coaching business, in that the only thing it does have to do with my coaching business is I can't coach people unless I'm continually learning and unless I'm doing what I'm telling them to do. So I do sometimes get involved in other businesses and I invest in other businesses because it gives me credibility, but from an integrity perspective, it means that, I can say, look, I know what it's like to own a business. So those really are, that's my biggest project. And then I also mentioned the global difference makers, and that's around that scholarship on helping women. And also I've got Head Over Heels TV, which I'm launching probably next month. It was delayed, but that's very much a channel aimed at women and helping women in business too. So actually there's quite a lot going on.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. And is that through YouTube or through a specific TV channel?
No, at this point it'll be through YouTube. And there's also a channel in the States called Access to Experts that I'm involved in and that I'm doing some work for. So, it does go back to what you said about the internet changing the world. It's when I think of my first computer 25 years ago, it had 60 megabytes on it. 60 megabytes, that's like 6 photos it could have fitted on it.
Yes.
And where we're at now and the ability to reach so many people, it's exciting times. It's exciting times, but it means that we can share our gifts with the world, really. Exactly.
I remember being a child and having this they were called 48K or 64K, and they were you had to put a cassette.
Yes.
Which would load a game, and then you could play the game, and it was insane. And the first computer that my father had was Unisys, and it was like, I don't know, 5,000 euros at that time. Yeah. And so now would be like 15 or 20 or 30,000. It was crazy, insane.
I know.
The development is incredible.
It is incredible. And that's also why you have to constantly keep your skills up, keep scanning the environment, working out what's going on. And that's actually why when I work with my clients, I only do 90-day scorecards as opposed to year-long, because the world is changing too quickly.
Exactly. I totally agree with it. And could you let us know also which are your mentors or coaches? Because, me as a coach, a life coach certified by the ICF, I never stopped working with other coaches or other mentors exactly for that reason, because I cannot stop learning. It's I don't know. I'm a bit of a workaholic in a way, but there is this, if there is a learning holic, sort of speaking, that would be me, because I cannot stop. I don't watch movies. I don't go out for dinner. I don't do anything. I just sit on my computer and I just gobble this kind of information. So could you let us know which is your thing?
Sure. Look, I do have two mentors in Australia. Obviously, I pay them to mentor me in terms of business. But in terms of who I look up to, there is a coach called Marshall Goldsmith. He is an American. He is a leadership and an executive coach. He looks like Santa Claus. He's just the loveliest man, big white beard. And I've met him a few times. I really love his philosophies, and I read a lot of that. To be honest, I love Tony Robbins. I know a lot of people criticize him and they say, oh, it's American, rah, rah. Generally, the people who criticize him have never actually been to one of his events. They've watched 2 minutes of him. So I do go to a lot of Tony's events. And I'll probably do the Business Mastery event in the next year or two if I can find the time to do that. And then, of course, you have people like Warren Buffett. So have you ever heard of the Gallup Strengthsfinder?
No, I haven't.
So Gallup Strengthsfinder, it's an international program. You can do it online. I think to find your top 5 strengths, it's not expensive. It's something like $15 to $30. But essentially what it does is it helps you assess your strengths. Mm-hmm. And mine came up as strategic and visionary. And then they call it intellect and input. And then the fifth one is a relator. So intellect and input, and I suspect you probably the same from what you've said to me, is I'm also always continually reading and gathering ideas. So if you look at my night table, I usually have 10 books on it. I can't get through them all, but I'm forever collecting information and reading. So I have a lot of mentors, and I read a lot as well from various people because I like to get that the variety in as well. I love people like Warren Buffett. I think he's the most amazing man. There was another person, and this was on purpose that most people don't know about him, but there's a terrific book called The Billionaire Who Wasn't. And it's about a man called Chuck Feeney. So Chuck Feeney started the duty-free outlets, the first DFO outlets. And if you've ever been to Hong Kong or Hawaii, you walk into the airport and that's what he started. And he effectively turned nothing into a billion-dollar business. And then one day, about 20 years ago, he was living in Hong Kong with his business partner, and his business partner had this unbelievably ostentatious birthday party. It was 3 days long, and they had hot air balloons. And he looked at this, and he kind of went, well, I don't see the point. So he went off to the Bahamas, and he started a trust. It was a secret trust. And that trust for the next 20 years was tasked with getting rid of his $6 billion. Wow. And initially it was a secret. He didn't want people to know. He's quite a humble man. He's Irish American. He still wears a $15 Seiko watch. I think he's well into his 80s now. They had to reveal who he was when he sold his shares to Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, because they said, look, there's issues around money laundering, so we have to let people know. But he's been instrumental in negotiating peace with the IRA. He's been instrumental in funding universities all over Ireland. In Queensland, he's been instrumental in funding the universities and turning it into the I think they call it the technological state. So whilst we don't know much about him, he has touched on nearly everyone. I think in Vietnam, he started a campaign to get people to wear helmets. So if you go to Vietnam, there's like millions of scooters. Everybody wears helmets because of it. So I love the philanthropy that he did. I really admire him. I must say I admire Warren Buffett. He's a very humble man, but I think he's a beautiful man. Mm-hmm. Just if you look at the fact that he uses his money to make a difference, as does Bill Gates. So these are the sorts of people that I look up to and I use as mentors. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. I mean, I totally relate with you in terms of, for instance, Tony Robbins, which I did the UPW and the Date with Destiny in 2005 with him, and I was with him on stage, and it was just an incredible experience. And sometimes I even put some books under my pillow and I sleep on them, so that I can use that in terms of the energy that goes into my brain during the night.
Yeah, hopefully it'll get absorbed.
Exactly. Trying to use every minute of my day in the best, most productive way. Yes. So I totally relate with you, and it's so important, and I really appreciate you saying those words.
Well, the thing about Tony is it's how he makes you feel. And this is what I mean when I say that you have to have that leadership behavioral element in terms of achieving anything, because people will not remember the words you used or what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Yes.
And that translates into anything, whether you're a parent, whether you're running a business, whether you're managing people.
Definitely. And it was through Warren Buffett that I heard those words exactly, where he said, in order to become the best company in the world, you have to make that memory in the customers of how you made them feel. And that's going to be what they remember. And it's a video on YouTube about Warren Buffett saying those words. So I totally agree with you. And Tony Robbins doesn't leave anyone indifferent. You can totally feel it and experience it, and it's very, very amazing in that way. So we are reaching the end of this podcast. I cannot believe it. Time flies. I just wanted to perhaps ask two questions. One, I don't know if you feel comfortable in sharing with us, but I'm curious to know which kind of things you actually sell on your online business.
Yeah, so I import women's accessories and handbags from all over the world into Australia. Oddly enough, I now export to everywhere as well. So I think I have a map on the wall in that particular office with pins for the different places that I sell to. And one of the things I'm going to do in Europe as well is set up a base here in Europe. So I think I mentioned before, I love being a girl, and I love all the things that go with it, including handbags and accessories and things. Not that I'm materialistic, and I must say now that I sell them and I know how much wholesale is worth, I would never spend money on certain things like that, or the money that they ask for anymore. But at the moment I do focus on women's accessories. I actually had an online store 12 years ago, selling lingerie and bits and pieces like that, but I just found the market in Australia was not, let's say, receptive to it. And I think also Australia is a very small market for those sorts of things, and it's a much more complicated business when you have to start dealing with sizing. So I just made it a much simpler business, and it's just grown tremendously. But it's also about democratizing fashion for women. So whilst I sell branded products, I sell them at a much better price. I'm happy to make less money out of it, but then they also get something lovely for a lot less. So that's what I do in terms of that.
That's wonderful. So my question would be, what is your favorite accessory at the moment, at least?
My favorite accessory would have to be my phone, actually, at the moment. It keeps me connected with everybody and the world. Actually, I didn't bring much with me to Europe. I just like a very simple pair of earrings, a little pair of diamond earrings. I think they're elegant and simple, and really, who needs more than that?
Like the saying says, diamonds are girls' best friends. Right?
I suppose they are, yes.
Okay. So it was lovely to speak to you. I just wanted to ask a final question, which is, what are the most amazing keys or tools or tips that you would give an entrepreneur or anyone that you work with that would benefit from in terms of self-development or spiritual-driven mentality, something that really pinpoints your work into like 2 or 3 words or sentences?
For me, it would be get clarity on what your vision is, and that can be difficult to do. But once you have absolute clarity and you know your purpose, other things fall into place. The second thing would be about really being focused on what you need to do. What you say no to sometimes has more impact on your life than what you say yes to. And unfortunately, we can't do everything. So be very, very clear and choose a very small number of things to focus on in any one period, because they are much more likely to get achieved, and you won't be overwhelmed either.
Wonderful. Well, this ends our conversation for today. I would like to continue, and I would like to make this as long as possible, but I don't want to take more of your time. So I thank you very much for your presence, and I really look forward to speaking to you soon again.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And this was another episode of Make It Happen. And please let us know, Angela or I, if you have any questions about any of the themes that we focused on here today. Send us an email, find us on Facebook or Instagram, and let us know. We are here to help you and to serve you. Thank you very much, Angela. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.